Welcome to episode 3. My name is Matt Hansen, and I'm here with my co-host Jim Deedlow. We are talking about illusion number 2 today, right? So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Crazy little names, but they're going to make sense, right?
You know, anybody that has a local business and they have customers, they are already trying to put it together. Well, what's he going to mean by that? But then you think about it long enough and you're like, yep, I think I got that already. But let's get your definition of it. I mean, Obviously all customers are not the same, but what's a Jekyll customer and what's a Hyde customer?
Oh, goodness. We talk about customers in general, right? So the people that walk through our door, the people that order from us, the people that, we want to call family, right? But let's look at it in the terms of family, right? So we have wonderful people in our family that we love to sit and talk with at Thanksgiving or whatever, right? And then there's Uncle somebody or Aunt somebody, right? And they are a time suck, right? They are going to tell you all of the things that are wrong with your life. They are going to do things that make you uncomfortable. And I think that's the easiest way to say that there are customers that you love and there are customers that will drive you insane. And that's what we're talking about today.
All right, so let's start with the ones that will drive you insane. Define.
Well, again, one of the things that I say all the time is time and money, right? So small business, those that will take a vast amount of your time, those that will come in, they're very needy. And we've got a bunch of different examples we'll talk about today. But
we were just dealing with one. Our producer is Adriana Alvarez. She's a student, and she works for us here. And we got a customer that requires a lot of time. Right. And we were just smiling about that. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sure anybody else listening this is like, yes, I know exactly who he's talking about.
Right. And you know them. And they spend so much time, wasting your time that it just doesn't make sense for them to be the customer, right? So again, we talk about the Pareto principle, the 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. And so what we're trying to say is identify your ideal customer. Who is that? What do they look like? How do they interact with your company? What do they buy? Are they needy? Are they not needy? Are they, are they friends and family? That, because strangers become friends and family over time. So that's what we're trying to look at is that 80-20 rule and really understanding I need to focus on the 20% of my customers that bring in 80% of my revenue and find more of them. And that's what we're going to kind of discuss today is that there are good and there are bad. And we are going to kind of discuss those types of people through a system that I actually like to use a lot and I use with my own clients.
All right, let's break it down here. Matt likes to simplify everything in threes. Okay, 1, 3, 5 is what I always go by, but he stops at 3. If you were listening to the last one, it was awareness, consideration, and purchase. And now we have, when you're talking about your customers, you're talking RFM. That's all you need to remember when putting out your customers. Start with that.
Sure. So RFM is a simple model that we use, and it's recency, right? So how recent somebody was a customer that came in, purchased, dined, whatever it may be. We have frequency is how often they are in, right? So do they come in once a year? Do they come in once a week? And then we have M for monetary, right? So what do they spend? Are they spending $65 or are they spending 65 cents, right? And that's really what we break it down, and we can start to look at different customers. And I thought instead of just kind of giving you this RFM model and breaking it down and, getting very technical with you, again, I like to keep things simple. So we're going to give you examples today that I've had to endure through clients or my own businesses and kind of talk through those. So, why don't we start with recency? Does that make sense?
It does.
In the order.
And all of you local business people are like, all right, recency, I have an idea on that, but what's a ghost of customer past? that I like the term, by the way.
Yeah. So I like to be creative, right? So we have the ghost of customer past, and those are people that at one point you had a relationship with. They were customers, right? And I always like to refer it back to, when people are dating, right? So you're dating somebody, you meet somebody, you go out, you have coffee, dinner, whatever it may be. You have the date, you have a second date, whatever it may be. And at some point, if you didn't marry them, they disappear, right? Something happened, they broke up. That's the ghost of customer past, right? So if you had this customer 3 years ago and you're still mailing a postcard to them, you're still emailing them, you're still trying to target these individuals, I always say to everyone, hey, I don't believe you understand this yet, but you guys broke up.
He's just not that into you.
He's just not that into you, right? So you guys broke up and you're just trying to hold on to the past. Let it go, right? It's because every time you send messages out to these individuals, it's costing you money. So they're no longer spending money with you, but you're spending money on them. So why would you want to burn that money on something that you broke up? Let it go.
So that is one, you got to break up, and sometimes you just got to let it go. But there are, let's take a plumber. I just saw going by my buddy who has the plumber, Whiting Plumbing, and he talks all the time about these customers have been calling me. He's been doing it for 50 years,
Right.
about ready to give it up. And he's just like, they want it in a certain way, the certain, they want me to come at a certain point of the day. They want me to talk to them a certain amount of time. They want me to do the project. And then, there is a certain rhythm to the whole thing. What are those people called?
Oh, those are your best customers, right? So those are the ones that you want to keep. Right? It's the relationship. You have a good relationship. You know what to expect, right? You're not going on the date and then they turn into some crazy person, right? But those are the ones that you want. You know the expectations. You know that they trust you. You know that they're going to call you the next time something comes up. And you talk about a plumber. I'm sure he has a major list, right? Customers pass. Hopefully he's kept all of that. But when he looks at that list, again, 20% of that list is going to be 80% of his business. So if he were to go out there and say, well, I want to go market to these individuals, I want to send a mailer, or maybe he has emails or whatever, that's going to cost you extra money. So you're targeting these 80% of your former customers that will never come back or don't spend a lot of money, or you go there and you give them a quote and they're going with the next lowest person that's out there, right? So identifying that 20% of your customers that give you most of your business is really the best way to understand where you need to go.
So you've brought up the Pareto principle every day in class. Once again, Matt Hansen is the clinical professor here at P&W, and I at one time was a student, and that's honestly the first time I ever heard it. But you have the recency of those 20%. Do you forget about the 80%?
No, I mean, we try, right? So it's, you may maybe make a phone call. You may send a mailer out or something, right? You may send them an email, but if you're not getting responses, at some point you got to just give up, right? I cannot convince you to come spend money in my business. So why am I wasting my time with you, right? So it's time, it's money again. I keep going back to it because that's the world we live in, right? We're in business. And you're just spending too much time. I see companies all the time that waste so much time and money on these customers, and they don't realize, like, just go find your best customers and make them the influencers, the people that are going out there and telling others about you because they love you. So why not spend time with people that love you instead of people that are ghosting you?
So when you're looking at your customers, let's start. You look at, all right, how long has it been? Your time factor there. And do I need to break up or not break up? And you put the Pareto principle and you apply it to your list of 120 customers. And you wind up and you're like, dude, I got 24 customers where I get most of my stuff. All right. So then you go on to like, all right, let's look at our customers from another angle, which is the second part, is the frequency of them using me. Not necessarily, we're not talking about money yet. Mm-hmm. We're talking about how many times. And there are some that are using you a lot, mm-hmm. but they are giving you issues, especially the compulsive returner.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Oh, the compulsive returner. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I mean, I remember this one customer. We used to sell not expensive furniture, but they were ornate furniture pieces that were dressers and little nightstand tables and things like that. And we had this one customer, and she would come in every single either week or every other week, and she'd say, "Hey, I'm trying to, decorate my bedroom or whatever it may be." And she would say, "Hey, I'm looking at this piece. I'd love to see how this looks in my house." And we'd say, "Okay, well, great customer." We're like, "Okay, yeah, sure. Take it home. Take a look at it. If it doesn't work, bring it back," right? We knew who they were. We knew where they lived, all those types of things. Week later, she'd come back with that. "I'm going to try that one now." She'd go grab another one. And after 13 pieces of furniture, and it was like 3 months, right? Came back. None of these are going to work. So that's a bad situation, right? So we're trying to be nice. They're a great customer, but they're costing us an opportunity cost, really, because we could have sold those 13 pieces of furniture in the store, but they were gone. They weren't there, right? So how do you sell something that's not there? It's sitting in somebody's house. So how many of those pieces of furniture could we have sold during that time when she didn't buy anything, right? So that is a customer that you got to look at and go, all right, well, you're a great customer, but if you're not buying, and we'll get to that kind of in the monetary side of things, but if you're not buying and you're just taking our stuff and bringing it back, that's not a good thing either, right? I've got another story about somebody that it was a apparel brand, and basically they would order shoes, and they'd order them in every size, and then they bring them all back, right? So it was like 7 boxes, 8 boxes at a time. And finally, you just got to kind of stand up and go, whoa, like, we can't keep doing this. Everyone always says the customer is always right. But when you say that, you're going to end up closing your doors, because a lot of times all those issues that pop up are just going to sink your business.
So that frequency of basically the compulsive returner, there's not that many of them out there, but there are a lot more that just want free stuff.
Right. Oh, yes. Yes.
What do you call them?
Oh, I call them the Open House Grinch, right? So if you're a small business, you probably have some kind of event that you throw every single year, or every single, when maybe it's an anniversary of when you opened. And it's the individual that walks in. They come only to your events. They straggle in. They go straight back to the food. They fill their plates 17 times. They ask you what you're giving out. They take all these freebies. They get a bag so they can put all the freebies in it. They look around a little bit. Maybe they buy something as small as like a chapstick or something, right? And there's $1 or $2, and out the door they go. And you don't see them until the next event. And I don't know if you're like me, but I can put that name to a bunch of faces that I've seen through the years as you kind of smirk, right? But they're out there. And if you're doing an event, like, again, you're doing an anniversary event of when you open, and you're sending out notifications to those individuals, I hate to say this, maybe drop them off the list, right? Because they're not buying from you anyway, and they're not going to buy. They walk in, and the entire staff that you have, maybe it's just you see them walk in, and you go, oh, look, they're back, right? And you know what's going to happen, but if you've sent a postcard to them, or you sent email or whatever you're sending out to kind of notify these people, you're wasting time and money again. So why do it, right? Find your best customers.
ICP, ideal customer profile, that's kind of a big buzzword in MBA programs. You don't got to have an MBA to understand that. But there is an ideal customer profile. And by the time people finally kind of digest these through the years, The Office, a very famous sitcom for a long time, it's in syndication, and you can watch it. They have Dunder Mifflin. They sell products. I forget what it was. Paper products, right? And Jim Halpert is the guy, and he has a customer that calls him once a year, and he has to stand by the phone the entire time, because the guy calls up, gives him a order in like 10 minutes, writes up the order, and that is half of his sales commission for the year.
Right.
So he had part of the some of the sitcoms are about, like the phones are down or somebody, there's some big hullabaloo head and he misses the phone call. But that is an ICP right
Oh, yeah.
there. And I mean, now we're talking about basically the Grinch and the compulsive returner. But let's flip it to the other side. The frequency of this call was once a year, but it was 50% of his business. What do you call that person?
Oh, those are my favorite people, right? So we used to, I had a sales rep that came to me one year, and she said, you know the internet really well, but you know local marketing really well. You would be great for this brand. And I said, what is this brand that you're talking about? And it's, maybe some of our listeners will know, but it's called Fontanini. It's a nativity set line, right? And I went, okay, I never heard of this. I don't know why you're coming to me with this. It's not really in my wheelhouse, but I'm open to listening. So we started having these conversations about it, and we built a website. We did local marketing. We were the only one in the area that carried this, and believe it or not, the collectors that came out of the woodwork was amazing, right? They had 200 and some pieces to this entire set, but every single year they would do new items, and they would award the top retail company that sells the most in an area, right? I think it was like 10 people or 10 stores in the United States every year would get one of the family members to fly in, and they would sign pieces, and it was this huge event. And we would get it every year, right? And it was great, but I would call people all over that were my best customers because I knew they bought the new pieces every year. I didn't wait for them to come to me. I would literally send them an email or call them on the phone and say, hey, Jim, how's the family? I know the last time we talked, Bobby was going to college and all, I had all of these notes, so I got to know who they were. And I would tell them, I said, our first order is coming in, our first shipment is coming in July. Let me get your order out front before the major rush, going into the holiday. Let me get everything together. And by the way, we have an event that's coming. One of the family members is coming to sign. Would you like me to have all the pieces signed? And believe it or not, I would sit there and I would wait for people to order things, or they'd come in and they would spend $25 to $50 to $75 on these pieces. These customers that I would call personally and have these conversations with and do the, we'll get everything signed for you free of charge. We'll get it shipped out, or you can come pick it up. We'll put you at the front of the line. You're our best customers. We would sell $350, $400 worth of merchandise to these individuals, and those were our 80/20s, right? So those were our best customers, and we would have these weeks where we would just say, okay, we're dedicating it to talking to these people, getting them out in front of everyone else. Let's treat them like royalty. And I met some of the greatest people that way, and that's what really elevated our company in carrying that brand.
So you're at 350 to 400 on that. What was your average sale price?
The average sale online was about $25, but the average sale in-house was anywhere between $50 and $75.
So if you put it together, you're probably in the 35 to 40. So you're basically a 10x on that.
It was phenomenal.
So, we looked at recency and frequency, but in the end, it all comes down to money coming in the door.
Right.
How do you look at money when you're trying to evaluate your customers?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so your customers will pay for your products or services, right? What I've seen by dealing with a lot of small businesses is they always want to run a sale, right? So we want to run an open house. We want to do 20% off. We want to do 25% off. We want to do 30% off. And what I always say to them is realize you're training your customers to look for the sale. They know the open house is coming. They know the special event is coming. So if they're in there a month before that special event, the questions that they start to ask are, you guys are doing your open house again, right? And you'll say yes, and they'll say, okay, great, and they won't buy from you. They'll wait for the open house. They'll wait for the special event so they can save the money. So what we've done is we've all heard of hopefully most of us have heard of Pavlov's dog, right? You ring a bell and the dog salivates because he knows he's getting fed. It's the same idea here, right? We've trained our our customers by offering sales so often that they wait for the next sale, right? So again, you want to put something in your house right now, right? You want to do your kitchen or whatever else. We've got Menards by us, and they run an 11% off sale all the time, right? And pretty much what has happened to Menards, it's a big, huge company, but now they run that 11% off constantly. It's very rare that they don't have that running because they've trained their customer base to look for the rebate, right? So small businesses do this as well, but they don't realize it. And when you offer 20, 25% off, how many more sales do you have to make up for that loss of money, in that order? So when we start talking about our local, everyone, not everyone, but roughly 75% of individuals live in a rural area. Let's say you have 5,000 people in your city or your town, and now you got to get more people, right? So where do you go? You've got this sale. So what I always tell people is, don't train them on the sale. Train them on the product, the service, the relationship with your business, and they'll come back. They'll buy from you because everyone wants to be treated well, right?
The local companies that are listening to this are like, dude, but I need people in my door,
right?
And if I offer 25% off, they come,
right?
But ultimately, your margins are way lower,
yeah.
and I understand that you're training your customer for the sale, and we basically quit doing it. It's just like, all right, it's always good value, but a lot of places you see, oh, hey, you go into a grocery store and you're not going to buy this can of green beans until it goes. I think right now they're at about $2.39. Here we are in 2025. I won't pay over $2, so I know it's going to go down, and then I'll buy like 6 cans of green beans for $1.49. That's what they don't want.
Right. Well, I hear this all the time. Everyone wants to compete on price, which means that there's nothing that is separating you from your competitors at that point. I said, so you want to be the Walmart is what you want to be. And they look at me funny. They're like, no, I don't want to be Walmart. And I said, well, Walmart, literally, it's all about price. So that's what you're saying. So if you're offering discounts over and over and over again, you've become Walmart of the local small business. So if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But you're really not offering anything of value to those individuals for them to come in, right? So if obviously your food is not better than others, the products that you are, like I said, we had a home decor shop. We offered unique, one-of-a-kind things that nobody else could get anywhere else, and we would only buy 1 or 2 of them, right? So once they were gone, they were gone. And that's how you look to compete. You offer some other value outside of just discounts.
It's not the only kind of bad money client.
Right.
Some people know how to work the system.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Man. Yeah, I've got a buddy of mine that's a painter, and we talk all the time about this. So, unfortunately for him, he's I don't want to say struggling to kind of get the business going, but there's a bunch of things that he could do a little bit better, right? And one of those is literally just a contract, right? So a clearly defined contract as to what these people are paying for and what they get. I hear the story over and over where he'll go and he paints a house, and then the next thing you know, somebody's tapping him on the shoulder and saying, hey, I was thinking, which he always knows what that means, right? It's like, I was thinking maybe we should paint this room as well, and maybe we should do this, and maybe we should do this. And by the time he's done, he's, the original quote that he had given was 25% of the job. He's been there for 3 weeks now, and they're not willing to pay but a couple $100 more for what they've done. So now he's having some problems getting paid, and, they just take. What he needs to look for is, again, building that contract, clearly outlining what it is. And if you add additional services, it's going to be this. But he needs to find the right customer, right? So the customer that just says, okay, I want this, this, and this, and you have those conversations, you build the client or build the contract, and you say, okay, it's going to take us 4 days to do this. We'll be out in 4 days. This is what we're doing. And then you're out. They may come to him and say, hey, I was also thinking we can do this. That's great. Let me get you another contract. But there are those pushy kind of like, well, no, you're here. Like, what's another few strokes of paint, to cover 1,200 square feet of a house, right? So we see that a lot. I kind of coach him through that all the time and say, you need a contract, you need to clearly define. And it's funny because I've become his 80/20. Literally 80% of his business comes from me and my like circle of influence. So he's been just in my family. He's been to my cousin's house. He's been to my aunt's house. He's been all over, and it's kind of funny, right? So I always tell him like you've got to find people like me that can provide those references and because he does a lot of landlord stuff. So he's got, the bad landlords and he's got the good landlords and all that.
There's not too many of those, actually, good landlords. But so really you're getting to the final part here, the monetary, the good monetary. Right. We've touched on it from a lot of different angles. Certainly, you don't want the sales only person. Just simply what would be the good monetary analysis?
Yeah, it's mutual value. Right. So it's basically somebody comes in and they have we say need, want, or demand. Right. So needs are basic needs. I need to eat. I need, shelter, etc. We have wants and then we have demands, which are set by dollar amount. Right. So as your income goes up, I get more demand, and things that I want to wear, things I want to drive, things, things I want to do. When it comes to small businesses, if you come to me, let's say tomorrow a furnace goes out and I have 3 people that come out and the first one is very pushy and this is what you need to do. The second one walks me through and says, here's the problem. You can go and replace this, but here's what's happening in the industry and all this other stuff. And they talk about the insulation in your attic and how it's going to react to your furnace. And then you have that third person that never shows up, right? Where's the mutual value there, right? The one that walked me through, here's what you can do for on the cheap, here's what you can do for a full replacement, here's why we would do this, and here are the factors that you need to think about, makes much more sense for me to talk to that person than somebody that's just trying to sell me on something. You're looking for that mutual respect back and forth, and when you can provide that, customers will flock back to you over and over and over again. It doesn't matter if you're, a couple $100s more. They want that experience to where I don't feel like I'm being pressured into something, right? So I bought a car 2 years ago and I went to 13 dealerships. 13 dealerships. Can you believe that? And it was funny. The one that I bought from, I called them up. They were 2 hours away. And I said, hey, here's the car I want. And she goes, all right, when do you want to come test drive? I said, I don't need to test drive. I've driven the kind of car that I'm buying. This is the one I want. This is what I want to pay. And we had a discussion. It had like a pinstripe thing going down the side they were trying to charge me for. And I said, take it off, which they did. And then I said, well, I don't, how can we get this car to me? It was 2 hours away. And they said, well, we'll drive it down. And I said, you're going to drive it down? Like, she goes, yeah, we'll have 2 of our guys come down. One will drive the car, one will drive another car. You can sign the papers in your house, and then we'll just take off from there. So it was downpouring that day when they showed up. They pull the car into my garage. The guy walks in with the paperwork. I read through it, I look through it, I sign everything. He hands me the keys, and he's like, all right, enjoy, and walks away. Now, 13 dealerships, and many are close to me that sell the kind of car that I bought, right? Where do you think I'm going to go next time? I'm going to call her up in a heartbeat and say, hey, I need another one. Here's the price. Let's do the exact same thing we did last time. She has found a customer for life as long as she doesn't go, a little bit crazy on trying to upsell me on things like that. But that is what we're talking about. That, to me, I will call her first thing the next time I need another car.
Illusion number 2, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde customers. And how do you analyze who goes where? You go and you use RFM, recency, frequency, and monetary. Sum it up.
Yeah, I think everyone always goes, that sounds great. I can't do that. But again, I've worked with plenty of small businesses that can kind of start to analyze this. So just sit down and go, okay, who are the people that we see over and over and over again? And start to kind of flag them in your little notebook or something and say, all right, Jim and Deb and all of them. Like, those are the people that we need to talk to a little bit more to kind of understand them. when it comes to the frequency, look at those that are in there every single week or every single month, those that call you every year for something, and really understand that I need to duplicate those types of people. And then on the monetary side, if you're selling something for $2 versus $200, again, it takes forever to make up to $200 when you're selling $2 little products. So, look at it from a standpoint of who spends the money and why they spend the money, and just kind of build that ideal customer, right? So we've talked a little bit about kind of the farm in previous episodes, really understanding that people will only travel so far, but then you got to look at the recency, the frequency of how often they're in and how much money they spend. And honestly, you build your ideal customer there. It's so much easier to go out and find them at that point.
Matt Hansen, putting things into threes, things that you can easily understand and apply to your business. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Until next time, we'll see you guys later.